I'm here today with John Eyre, the engineer who designed the Nappa Merrie Bridge, or the Burke and Wills Bridge as it's called. Hi John, thank you for coming along. And John and I have got a long history actually. He was my engineering lecturer back in the mid-70s, and every morning I have a swim and a coffee with him, unless I'm out there in the never doing a few adventures. So
well, it's a pleasure for me. It's a pleasure, Richard.
yeah.
Long time no see, I think, from the university days.
Yeah.
But for me, it is really memory lane, which is a very pleasant one, I must say.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we've been. I operate and own Spirit Safari, so we've been travelling out back for 30 years, doing a lot of work around Lake Eyre and South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, even up in the Kimberley. But we call it John's Bridge, this Nappa Merrie Bridge, and but it's got a few different names. The plaque on the bridge, the opening plaque says it's called the Burke and Wills Bridge, so a lot of people would know it as that. But John, you would know that Burke and Wills never had a bridge.
Yes, yes, of course. But the problem is that generally in design of any engineering project there is always more than one man. So I cannot claim it on myself. That was Bob Willing was the initiator who pushed for approval of a bridge in this place, and he asked me to join him in a wandering tour and persuading the shires, Border Shire Association, to get some money for the construction. The route and bridge over Cooper's Creek was his dream, really. I was designer, and there was, of course, a builder as well.
Yes, yeah. So who was Bob Willing, was it?
Yes, Bob Willing had a construction, Willing and Partners, with interest in hydrology, and he had a couple of offices in New Guinea as well.
Yeah. And when was this, John?
Well, I met him around 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So that the idea was to find the route across the Cooper's Creek, which is sometimes there's no water at all, and sometimes it's 20 kilometers wide.
Yes, yeah.
So to do that, it was really lucky that in 1974 there was big flood in the area, and the American NASA organization photographed it point by point, and to Bob Willing somehow conned them or persuaded them to send him about 100 photographs of the area from which one could pick up, where the water went. Mm. And also using stethoscope one could have some idea about the elevation. Mm. Not much, but it was helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier now. We've all got access to those aerial photographs from NASA and other sources, I think. But that bridge now is underwater thanks to these floods that are even bigger than the 1974 floods.
I'm glad that it's still there, because
sure you are.
Because it was another flood there between now and 1974.
Yeah.
When it was only, I think, just about topped up.
Mm. Well, I think this flood, the water's been 7 metres over the top of the bridge, I've heard, which is
7 meters.
I heard that figure. I'm not. Maybe that's at Inaminka, but
yeah, well,
I know it was 11 metres at Inaminka, but it was well over the bridge.
Well, I designed it, I think, for about from what I from records that I had, I designed it for about 2 meters overtopping. So you're shocking me here that it was even more.
Oh, well, we won't talk about that. No, that may not be right. 7 metres over the bridge is a lot. So I'm showing a few of these images as we talk, but and this one, it's interesting that the location of this bridge, for those who don't know it, is in Queensland, southwestern Queensland, but just over the South Australian border, and probably 100 or 150 k's north of the New South Wales border, north of Cameron's Corner. And that was a major stock route in its day, wasn't it?
Well, Cadman's stock route, yes.
Yeah.
What was his first name of Cadman?
Sir Sidney Kidman,
Cadman.
yeah,
Yes.
Kidman. He owned the station, that Nappa Merrie station, which is where the bridge is at the moment, and so bringing a major reason for the road was to bring stock into the southern markets, but also to transport stock, which it still is. You know, cattle and sheep in the day. Back in, well, Kidman was dealing with cattle, but there was one of the biggest old wool sheds owned by elders is just north of there as well. Beautiful old stone arch, 100-stand wool shed, shearing shed.
Yes, as far as I had, that route was starting somewhere in Northern Territory and going through Queensland. You know, it was a very long stretch, and the cattle needed a bit of a fattening up and a bit of nourishing before they were sent to the market.
Yes, yes. Well, it was really the beginning of a Strzelecki track, bringing those cattle down. You know, the Cooper was a rich area for for the Duracs. They had property on there, and others, you know, in the 1860s and so on. And Kidman certainly took advantage of that, was with all of his properties moving cattle down south. So, John, so the location of the bridge was really a bit of a challenge, wasn't it? And you had to look
Yes, that was certainly impossible to do by car or even by plane. The area was just immense, and you couldn't assess whether you could go through there or not. But those NASA photography, which was sent to us from United States, you know, the Bob Willing was the one initiator to persuade them to send it to us. There were about something like 100 photographs that you could join and make a large image of the area, and that photography was done to 1 in a million scale. So I was following possible routes, and we found that in one place, the Cooper Creek was only 0.3 millimeters wide, and that represented roughly about 300 meters in reality. And that was the starting point that we could take aerial photography of the area and investigate it a little bit further.
So I believe there's a fair bit of politics around where the bridge ought to be as well. Yeah,
yes, but the money was coming from Bordershire Association, which was on the corner from Thargomindah up to Boolia. You know, that area really wanted to have access to Sydney and Brisbane. So they delivered the initial money, and later on the money came from Moomba gas fields as well, a little bit, so the bridge could be built a meter wider than was intended.
Yes, you told me that you had a pool of money had come from the councils, and then Santos came in late with extra money, and they said, "Oh well, we could make the bridge a bit wider."
Slightly wider driveway. Yes, but the problem was that we couldn't build a bridge to the Australian engineering standards, because the engineering standard is 1 in a 100-year flood, and of course the flood comes every year. But negotiating the length of and the height of the bridge, we eventually agreed that the local population could afford to close that route for about 2 or 3 weeks a year anyway, because the road would be closed on both sides of the bridge. So there was no point to build a bridge sticking out like a submarine tower, you know, when all the area would be closed by water.
Yeah.
So I suggested that the bridge could be built for half a price if it was submersible. And that was unthinkable. That idea was unthinkable. mind-boggling. But I have here a journal which of a Bridge Engineers International Association, and they took notice of it. They say, "Oh, that's an unusual bridge. Would you give us some description of how it was built?" So I gave them about half a page description, and they say, "Oh, give us about 2 or 3 pages. That looks very interesting."
Yeah.
So it must be a unique bridge. After many others which are ordinary bridges, this one was somewhat different.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think the more people that call it John's Bridge, the better, I think.
A Bob's Bridge,
Oh, Bob and John, whatever.
Bob and John.
Yeah, well, you trained as an engineer overseas, didn't you? But you brought a lot of innovative technology to Australia and Australian bridge building.
Well, yes, I suppose, that was part of it, but I think most of the knowledge of bridge design I have learned in Sydney. I made a master degree on the economics of bridge design, where the roads and bridges were combined under one title and finding the cheapest possible alternative. And I was in roughly, I would say, in the best position to do this kind of assessment, because when I was working for the Department of Main Roads, I had access to at least 100 different plans of bridges and their prices and how they look like, their spans. So I could combine it into some kind of a theory of minimum cost.
Yeah. Great. Well, I mean, it's quite an historic bridge, as you say, and we've got this image here of it underwater. And would you like to talk a bit about the construction and what it was like building this?
Yes, right. Of course, in any kind of design of bridge, you have to have geology. First of all, you have to have fairly narrow gap and fairly stable abutments on both sides. So they had to drill holes and found that somewhere around 10 meters on the ground, in the Nappa Merrie waterhole, there was a reasonably tight ground, a reasonably strong ground for footings of the piers. But unfortunately, in great flood, there was always possibility of big tree or couple of trees or logs ramming into that bridge, and the water current could be about good, 4 or 5 meters per second. It could be quite a great current. So I had to make some, what you can say, educated guess how much force could be sent, could be imposed on the piers. And I found that normal symmetrical design was not possible. I had to offset the footings a little bit to provide more or less some support, against the current. Now, the second thing which was helpful is to build the bridge in 3 continuous sections, so that not one section could collapse. Always would, if one section was pressed, it could have been the section on the right and on the left supporting it. So that was the second guiding idea, I suppose. And then the rest was, of course, what material to use, whether steel or whether it's still the concrete. Steel was the only option because it was such an isolated place that you couldn't really design sections on the side. It had to be brought in and it had to be spliced. And it appeared to me quite obvious that the splicing should be the point of contraflexion, not in the maximum bending moment or in the center or in the pier, but there where the curvature of the deck changes. So that was another innovation which was a bit interesting, I think a bit different. So on the whole, it appeared to be a fairly cheap proposition, and there was always an element of risk for the debris, hitting it at some stage. But there are not such a big trees there in this area, so far we're lucky.
Yes, yeah. Did you allow for, when we were talking about the handrail on the bridge,
Yes,
did you allow for that at the time? Or?
Well, it had to be not conventional handrail, it had to be about 3 times stronger, handrail.
Yeah.
In Department of Main Roads here or in Queensland, there are standard section of everything.
Yes, yes.
Now I had to persuade them to accept my non-standard design. The first one, of course, was a shock for them that it was overtopped. So the handrail was a bit easier discussion of.
Yes, but the handrail adds quite a bit to the barrier for the current, doesn't it? And logs can jam up against that.
Yeah, true, but it is lower than average, I would say, lower than standard.
Yeah.
And if it would be standard, it would be catching as much rubbish floating down and
yes, yeah.
building up a dam virtually.
Mm.
So yes, correct. It would have been good to provide something holes or no handrail or whatever. But then of course the car would have more chance to go over.
Or maybe a swinging handrail or something that opens up in a flood.
Collapses.
Yeah,
collapses.
collapses onto the bridge, maybe. Yeah. Oh well. Well, you've raised a few interesting points there that I wasn't aware of. So next time we're over it, which is in a few weeks' time, we'll check it out in more detail.
Yeah. Well, there was one interesting point. When in the overtopping about 20 years ago, because the bridge is, I think, about 35 years or so standing. About 25 years ago, I was there with my son, on four-wheel drive, and I noticed workers there fitting back again the missing road to the both sides of the bridge. And one side was more than the others. And they were trying with jackhammers to remove the approach slab. And I told them not to do it. I told them to jack up that slab and pack it underneath. And they said, "Are you sure that it is good enough, that slab, when it is lifted up?" And I said, "Yes, I'm sure. I designed it." So they said, "Oh, good. That will take us 1 month away from our job, so it could be open a bit earlier."
So you could probably send a bill somewhere.
Oh, I was happy to help, give a helping hand, really.
Yeah. Okay, John. Well, that's really interesting. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I could only say that this bridge adds to my CV and a personal satisfaction of doing something for Australia, which Australia probably was very kind to me and very nice. And this bridge, however, not very significant in its size, but in idea, caught international attention in a way, and is a bit of a different. We have a couple of bridges which were much more imposing. The Harbour Bridge, of course, supposed to be the biggest, I think, of a kind.
Biggest single arch.
But in fact it was 10 foot a bit shorter. American beat us to it. But we have Gladesville Bridge, was the biggest bridge in the world for about 12 years until somebody built bigger, in Europe. So in my case, it was the most odd bridge, I think, what I did. You can say the oldest bridge in the world in terms of flood and in terms of design.
Yes, well, it's getting international attention again because of these floods at the moment, and it's very unique. Yeah. So thank you, John, for bringing that.
That was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Brought the memory back. Our memories with the romantic ideas such as we're from the Never and the town like Alice or my brilliant career. I knew quite a lot about Outback. Now I made the life of people on the Outback a little bit easier, just a little bit easier.
And I don't think we mentioned that it's just down the road from the Burke and Wills dig tree.
Of course.
Which is why it's sometimes by many known as the Burke and Wills Bridge. But as we said, they didn't have a bridge.
Yes, I have a dig tree book, on my shelf there, so I knew about it. And actually I saw the hole there, but as you are telling me, there was some controversy. Which tree is the real dig tree?
Yes, well at the moment, both the trees are probably underwater. There were two trees with dig written on them, and there was confusion for many years as to which was the real dig tree, but I think...
Well, I saw the hole there on the tree, which was having already growth on both sides of about, I don't know, not 10 centimeters, about 5 centimeters growth, but there was still a hole showing dig 3 feet northwest or something. So I assume that this is the one, but maybe I should go again and look at the other one.
I think everybody should go again and have a good look. Make sure they know which is the right tree.
Right.
So that's why Spirit Safaris exist, to take people there, and we're looking forward to those floodwaters going down a bit.
Well, I was always, looking for the wider world, as you know. I came from Europe through many countries in many languages and many bridges. About 50 in my life, I suppose.
Yeah,
design and then supervised. So, but this one is. I'm most proud of this one because it's different to all the rules of bureaucratic rules of bridge design, I should say.
Yeah, well, the world's bridge designers should come here and learn a few lessons. All right, John, we better wrap it up.
Okay, I can leave the chair and leave you the rest.
All right.
Sort out the drawings and...
we'll get some images up on the web. Yeah.
Good.
Great. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Great to know you all of these years, and
good.
To regularly see you most mornings. Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Thanks, John.
That was John Ivering, and John's done a number of back tours with us with Spirit Safaris. You can too. You can check out the Burke and Wills Bridge and John's Bridge and the Burke and Wills Dig Tree and these amazing floods that are happening around Lake Eyre and the Cooper Creek and Western Queensland at the moment. Just sign up on the contact form, details there, or on the website, spiritsafaris.com. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for listening.